feeling left behind by age. These 5 Buddhist truths will change everything. Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt like time has stolen something from you? A familiar face now full of wrinkles, cloudy eyes, and hands no longer nimble. Old age has arrived. But what if I told you these wrinkles aren't signs of decay, but doorways to a deeper understanding of life? One of Buddhism's core truths is impermanence, anicca. In the Upajjhatthana Sutta, the Buddha taught, "I am sure to grow old, no one can avoid aging." Impermanence isn't a pessimistic idea. It's simply the truth that everything is constantly changing, from the material to the mental, from the body to emotions. Look at a flower. It blooms, spreads its fragrance, then withers. We don't regret when flowers fade because we understand it's a natural law. So why do we suffer when we see ourselves growing old? I once panicked when I saw my first grey hair. It was a clear sign of time passing, of my body aging. Gradually I realized that each grey hair is a story, a lesson, and a mark of my life journey. When I stopped resisting this natural change, I felt much lighter. A simple way to practice accepting impermanence is to meditate on the breath. Each inhalation and exhalation is different and never the same. You see, even breath is impermanent. When we realize this, we understand that change isn't the enemy, but the nature of life. But if everything is impermanent, what is real? If everything constantly changes, is there anything solid for us to rely on? Part 2. Anatta. When the self is just an illusion. Non-self, anatta, is the second truth in Buddhism. This truth indicates no fixed, unchanging self or ego. This sounds confusing and even frightening. But try to think, are you from 10 years ago and you of today the same person? Physically, most cells in your body have been completely replaced. Mentally, your thoughts, views, and emotions have changed significantly. So, who exactly are you? Is it the ever-changing body, the continuously flowing stream of thoughts, or some unchanging soul inside? Buddhism suggests that what we call I is just a temporary combination of 5 aggregates: form, body, sensation, feeling, perception, mental formations, will, and consciousness. No fixed self exists throughout time. I know a woman who was once a professional athlete. When her body no longer allowed her to compete due to age, she fell into deep depression. She had identified herself so much with the image of an athlete that when she could no longer maintain it, she felt completely lost her identity. Through meditation practice and understanding the non-self, she gradually realized that athlete was just a temporary label, not her entire being. She began to explore other aspects of herself: a teacher, a friend, an art enthusiast, and found new joy. When we accept there is no fixed self, we no longer suffer so much when we see ourselves aging. Old age is no longer the decay of myself, but just a natural stage in the continuous flow of life. But if all is impermanent, and there is no fixed self, why do we still suffer when aging comes, when illness and loss occur? Is suffering an inevitable part of life? Part 3. Suffering, the doorway to understanding. Suffering, dukkha, is the third truth in Buddhism. It encompasses all forms of dissatisfaction, from physical pain and mental sorrow to feelings of emptiness and incompleteness. Old age brings many forms of suffering: bodily pain, loss of loved ones, feelings of uselessness, fear of death. But it's important to understand that suffering is not something bad that must be avoided at all costs. It is a natural part of life and a sign that we are living, feeling beings. When my loved one passed away, the pain tore my soul apart. But within that pain, I realized my deep love for them. Without love, there would be no suffering when losing someone. Therefore, suffering and love are two sides of the same coin. I have a friend who is a writer. When he developed age-related macular degeneration, he was initially desperate because he could no longer read and write as before. But instead of fighting against fate, he accepted reality and switched to storytelling through sound. Remarkably, this experience opened a new dimension in his art. He began paying attention to sounds and the rhythm of words, things he hadn't noticed before when focusing too much on writing. From then on, his storytelling style became more emotionally vibrant. This story shows that suffering can be a doorway to new understanding and a new perspective on life. But how can we embrace suffering without being overwhelmed by it? How can we find peace even in the challenges of old age? Part 4. Mindfulness. Living fully in each moment. Mindfulness, sati, is recognizing what is happening in the present, in our body, emotions and mind, without judging or reacting out of habit. Imagine you're drinking a cup of tea. Usually, our minds wander elsewhere, worrying about the future, regretting the past, planning for tomorrow, while our bodies automatically drink tea without tasting it. That is living unconsciously. When practicing mindfulness, you'll feel the warmth of the teacup in your hand, the gentle aroma rising, the bitter taste spreading in your mouth, and the warm sensation as the tea flows down your throat. That is living in the present, complete in each moment. In the context of aging, mindfulness helps us recognize the changes in our bodies without denial or excessive worry. It helps us calmly accept new limitations. Most importantly, it helps us appreciate what remains rather than regretting what is lost. The simplest way to practice mindfulness is to focus on the breath. Sit quietly for a few minutes daily, paying attention to the sensation of breath entering and leaving the body. When the mind wanders, and it will wander a lot, gently bring attention back to the breath. I began practicing mindfulness by strolling, paying attention to each step, the sensation of my feet touching the ground, and the movement of my body. At first, I felt awkward, even a bit silly, but gradually, I realized that these simple moments brought me the most profound sense of peace. Mindfulness helps us escape worries about the future or regrets about the past, which often become heavier as we age. But how do we extend this peace beyond meditation hours? How do we live a complete life, especially when facing old age? Part 5. Compassion, opening the heart to ourselves and others. Compassion, karuna, is empathy, understanding, and the desire to reduce suffering for ourselves and others. Surprisingly, many people find it easier to show compassion to others than themselves, especially as they age. We are often harsh with ourselves, criticizing our bodies when they are no longer as strong as before, blaming our minds when they're not as quick, or regretting missed opportunities from the past. But this is precisely when we need compassion for ourselves the most. Self-compassion doesn't mean self-pity. It's the ability to recognize that we, too, are human beings with weaknesses and deserve to be treated with kindness and understanding, just as we would treat our loved ones. I remember forgetting an old friend's name when introducing them to someone. I felt embarrassed and blamed myself. I'm becoming forgetful with age. But then I asked myself, if a friend of mine were in a similar situation, would I treat them as harshly? The answer was clearly no. I would comfort them, saying everyone forgets sometimes. So why couldn't I be as kind to myself? Compassion for oneself is the foundation for extending compassion to others. When we can accept our weaknesses and limitations, we find it easier to empathize with others going through similar challenges. A simple method to develop compassion is metta meditation, loving kindness. Begin by sending good wishes to yourself. May I be peaceful, healthy, and happy. Then, extend these wishes to loved ones, acquaintances, and finally, to all beings. With regular practice, compassion becomes not just a passing emotion, but a permanent quality in our hearts, helping us face the challenges of aging more gently and calmly. But how does compassion become part of our daily lives? And how do we face the inevitable limitations of old age? Part 6. Old age, an opportunity for practice and growth. In modern culture, old age is often viewed as a decline, a process of losing health, beauty, and abilities. But in Buddhist philosophy, old age is a precious opportunity for spiritual practice and growth. Feeling left behind by age. These 5 Buddhist truths will change everything. Vertical bar, Buddhism. When young, we are often too busy with work, family, and social relationships to devote time to self-reflection and spiritual practice. Old age, with its slower pace of life, gives us the space and time to look back on our lives, reassess our values, and focus on what truly matters. I have a teacher who is over 90 years old. He can no longer move around, but his mind is remarkably clear and peaceful. Once, when I asked him the secret to living happily in old age, he smiled and said, "When I was young, I always wanted to change the world. Now, I understand that the only thing I can change is myself." Old age forces us to face the core truths of life: impermanence, non-self, and suffering. But instead of resisting them, we can accept and learn from them. That is the path to true peace. Old age is not the end of the journey, but a turning point that leads us into a new phase, a phase where we can live more deeply, love more broadly, and understand more clearly the true nature of life. When we accept impermanence, let go of the ego, face suffering, live mindfully, and nurture compassion, the wrinkles on our face are no longer signs of decay, but imprints of a life fully lived with all its colors, both joy and sorrow. Each of us will grow old. That is inevitable. But we can choose to age with peace, wisdom, and compassion. If this message spoke to you, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Let's walk this journey of wisdom together. And if you found value in this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more insights on embracing life with peace, purpose, and mindfulness. Aging is not the closing of a book. It is simply the turning of a page. And the next chapter, it's yours to write.